all ready to head off the trails? I'm the cryptid huntress, Jessica Jones, and I'm ready to take you on a mysterious journey right now. We welcome you to Off the Trails right here on the Spaced Out Radio YouTube channel. If you haven't hit subscribe yet, please do. We'd really appreciate the love. And shout out to Bumblefoot for that amazing intro music. I super appreciate that. You guys can follow us at Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. You guys can find me at thecryptidhuntress.com, and please subscribe to my amazing YouTube channel, The Cryptid Huntress. I have a wonderful daytime show Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern, and every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. I do a really cool remote viewing show, and my guest tonight, Barry, has been joining me on that pretty frequently, and so we're going to talk about that tonight. And also, please visit my shop. It's War Woman Goods. That's all one word jumbled up together on Etsy. War Woman Goods. If you'd like to support what I do here at Space Out Radio and everywhere else, okay? Also, you can join my Patreon. That's the Cryptid Huntress on Patreon, okay? And I have a great Patreon family over there. All right, so I have an amazing guest here. Y'all know who it is. It's Barry Littleton. He's my sidekick, and we do a whole bunch of shows together. And so, but don't forget, right after this show, After Hours has a really great program set up for us. So let's get to our guest. Barry Littleton is a graduate in psychology, sociology, and ethnic studies from Wichita State University. Barry has, for the last 2 decades, been involved in administration for at-risk youth, including cognitive behavioral modification and managing aggressive behavior. He's also an options stock trader. He's researched and practiced several aspects of the spiritual, metaphysical, and paranormal. Okay, I have Barry on so many shows. I just love working with Barry. He is a wealth of knowledge, one of the most knowledgeable and I'm going to say influential at this point. Influencers in this community, because he knows his stuff and he does his research. So please help me welcome to Space Out Radio tonight, Mr. Barry Littleton. Hey, Barry.
Greetings. How you doing, Jessica? Live.
Live and direct. Yes.
Thank you for the introduction. You could also say, or the extremely strange melanin dominant guy that communicates with aliens since he was a kid or whatever, you know.
That weird dude.
Yeah, it's all sorts that goes with this
Yes.
this whole deal, you know.
Absolutely. No, man, I've been having so much fun doing shows with you, Barry, and just working with you. And lately, you and I have been doing remote viewing shows where you have been assigning me blind targets. Okay, I showed you how to assign coordinates to targets, and so you've been sending me sets of numbers, and I have been remote viewing those numbers, and we have come up with some interesting data in these blind targets that we've been doing. So I encourage everyone to check out my YouTube channel, The Cryptid Huntress, to check those out. So yeah, and tonight, Barry, we're talking about something you and I have never discussed on air before. Something totally different. It's not Dogman, it's not Bigfoot, it's not aliens, it's not the planets. It's vampires.
I give you much credit because I was in a situation that was very hard for me to film videos again, and I've been able to start again. And I had just put a few on Patreon, and I put way more videos on there than I ever released on YouTube. And I'm trying to kind of make sure they get things first. I wasn't going to release the one I just released yesterday, but since you want to do this show, I went ahead and released it. And it's it's so fascinating because it's again abnormal, but by the same token, it takes us down the rabbit hole in a way that I think it's got some relevancy in real life things, real paranormal, more than just these vampire cults and some of the obsessions that go on with the cinema cults and things like that. But anyway, sorry, but yeah, we'll get into all that. I think it's real interesting when you really take it to the 3 different areas this would go. And if it wasn't for our friend Matt Delph, I mean, I would never have thought about this and connecting it to more spiritual issues than what we have. You know, it's real interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you've got these human mouth monsters, and then you've got those energy vampires too that are inorganic and non-corporeal that are
Yes.
preying on us at all times. So we'll go into that.
Yeah. And we have people that we know that are energy vampires, right? So
sadly,
there's all sorts of vampires.
You nailed it, sister. Yeah.
Yes. And, that's why we have to protect our energy.
And narcissists.
Yeah. Well, okay, so let's rewind just a little bit and talk about Matt. Matthew Delph is a good friend of ours, a good friend of mine. Barry met him. Barry and I both met him for the first time at Camp Disclosure in Georgia last year. And Matthew and I were actually both asked to speak about Bigfoot at this conference. And he knew the people on my team, and he had been going out with some of the guys on my team doing Bigfooting. And so he and I had been looking forward to meeting each other. You and I had been looking forward to meeting each other. We all connected at that conference. That was so much fun.
It was.
And
it was.
Since then, I have spent many hours in the woods with Matthew Delph doing Bigfoot research. And now his specialty is Bigfoot, just like my specialty was Bigfoot. However, we have so much other activity when we're out in the field. We can't just say we're just Bigfoot researchers anymore. Okay. And so we can't just say we're just Bigfoot. We're into aliens. Thank you, Lala, for that super sticker. You were so sweet. Lala's awesome. So we can't just say we're just Bigfoot researchers. We're into just about everything. Aliens, spaceships, UFOs, portals, all that stuff. And Matthew has an interest in vampires. And he's told me that for a while now, that he's been doing research on vampires. And I've been asking Matt to come on my show. All right, y'all. So everybody knows Matthew is supposed to be on my show. So he just works a lot. Yeah. But he was telling us about a vampire in a bottle, Barry. And would you like to talk about that a little bit? Because you know a little bit more about this than I do. It didn't sound safe. Okay. I would never bring a bottled vampire into my home. Okay.
Well, it was quite fascinating. And what this details is vampire hunters trapping vampires in bottles. And the method that was described when I started researching is that you've got the issue of how does the vampire, as a corporeal physical being, get from the grave and the coffin to out here and then back into the morgue, into whatever it is. How do they get to and from? It's by shape-shifting into vapor mist. And that's what they're known for. And at that point, that's how they actually transfer back to the grave, and in that fashion. Now, when they're in that shape-shifting transformation stage, these vampire hunters will put blood into a bottle and then invite them in when they're in mist form. So, there's a thing like you invite them into the house and things of that nature, but they invite them into the bottle and they go into it, the blood. And it's fascinating when taking this and cross-referencing how, through even just the blood sacrifice that's gone on throughout the ages on this prison planet. Sorry, folks.
Yes.
Oh, gosh. Maybe I can't try to be negative. Oh, no. Anyway, it's hard not to talking about this stuff because the hemoglobin is how these negative entities have manifested. It's all over. It's indoctrinate all over the place. Okay, so that's what we're dealing with again, is that situation. Anyway, once they go into the bottle in mist form to feed on the blood, they cork the bottle and throw it into like a holy fire or a blessed fire and destroy it. Wow. And I found that fascinating. And the way I kind of take this and correlate this is with inorganic beings also. And when I say inorganic beings, those beings that are non-physical, some of them are shadows and other these negative entities that get on us and pump us with negative thinking, stinking thinking, and they rile our emotions and they feed on us, energy vampires. So you've got not just these human monsters and these individuals that are so obsessed with vampire cults that and movies and things and that whole lifestyle that they're drinking blood and attacking people and doing this whole satanic thing. That's really odd. I remember listening to, it was years ago. I believe it was Art Bell interviewed that guy that makes those really expensive prosthetics, the teeth, the vampire teeth. He was saying how many of these he sells to not just people that are moviegoers or movie
Really?
prop masters, but people that are involved with this lifestyle trying to be real vampires.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's
There's a lot of people that do this stuff, Barry. And I actually, okay, with all these shows that I do with my remote viewing, paranormal stuff, a lot of these dogman attacks and unspecified animal attacks and things. I don't really want to get into it too much because it's kind of off topic a little bit. I have actually been contacted by certain people who have some occult knowledge and inside information saying I have to be really careful. I should be careful of talking about some of these subjects with the blood, them going for, I guess you call it like adrenochrome and things like that. Some of this, my data has come up with some very interesting stuff as to why these creatures are attacking humans and eating, they're going for their blood. And I've been kind of warned that I need to be careful about what I discuss in public on this. That's why I have my Patreon set up so that I can put all my data there. Because it's actually kind of dangerous from what I've been told.
Yeah, get out some Kiefer Sutherland come for you. Some Kiefer Sutherland, maybe some.
It's more prevalent.
Some Fight Night, some Lost Boys. I hear you. I'm sorry, I'm just teasing you. But I mean, these are things that no more than saying right now in Hollywood, you could go on a block there and find somebody who practiced hoodoo to curse somebody.
Right.
I mean, it's not that. These are things that are becoming more available with the mainstream because the internet's here and everything. It's not hard anymore, But anyway, regarding this need for blood and all that, and taking that, and like I said, cross-referencing to inorganic beings and what are sometimes called the jinn. And there's a book that I reference sometimes. I have some issue with it, but there's some decent information in there. It's the Uranta book. And they talk about these beings that they call midwayers, primary and secondary midwayers. I've done some videos on this on my channel, and they're just connected to the one that I put out. So there's a comment section. I linked it in there. But anyway, these primary midwayers, these midwayer creatures are part of some of these beings that came that were partially angelic that we hear about so much. The princess staff is what they were called, but some of them were non-corporeal, some of them were partial corporeal, quasi, and they were mating with the natural inorganic beings and angelics and light beings, that forth of this realm from this planet, and creating these things called midwayers. And some of these midwayers were non-corporeal, some were slightly corporeal and between. And the secondary midwayers were known to rebel. So I think when dealing with the concepts of the jinn and some of these different inorganic beings, like the ones that I've described in your show before, when I was younger, I was trying to do this certain astral projection thing. And what it did was modified the way I could see. I could already see, but it changed in the way I started seeing in my peripheral, these shadows a lot. And the shadows, the peripherals in black and white, regardless of what people think. Okay, that's why you can so often catch spirits in your peripheral, especially if you're looking at a shining surface in your peripheral, you'll see those spirits a lot. Okay, so I start seeing these shadows a lot. And two types, the ovular ones and the ones that were bigger, more ovular. Okay, and then one day I saw ovular one attack somebody I worked with. I won't go over that story again, but when it did, it elongated crown down to the sex chakra, and it started pulsing and making this individual having horrible thoughts and feeding on their energy field. It was very obvious. We think as humans, we're at the top of the predatorial chain because of our concrete jungles, but we're not. We do have predators here, definitely. And they're inorganic, and they're after awareness and luminosity. Period.
Anyone who's shining their light bright is getting attacked right now, probably. A lot of people. It's just, and that's why it's so important to learn how to protect your energy for everybody. Even when you go to Walmart, God, how many times do I say that? Like, even when you go to the grocery store, protect your energy. Put a protective energy bubble around you.
Yeah, and you got them. You got these inorganic beings. They show up in our dreams too, and what they use is they use to camouflage the phantasmagorical images that are created within this electron impulse when we're dreaming to deceive us. And you have the ones that show up as odd objects in your dream, and the others that show up as people you know and love. and they be messing with you hard, man. Doing something in your
Yes,
dream,
they
like,
do.
man, why will my dad do that to me? Why will my mom do that to me? They're on you. You're causing somebody, they're attacking you. They're trying to flare you up so they can feed on you. And that takes us also, since we're dealing with the dream cycle and these inorganic beings of that type, you've got the others that are present on this planet that are called incubus and succubus, which attack people when they're sleeping and create this sleep paralysis type of thing. But then again, these are energy vampires, energy emotionals, and then you've got the next level of them that use blood, the higher level, maybe the ones that are even older. I don't know. I'm not into the dark thing, okay? I just know how to protect myself from it. Right. And then we've got the next step, and I'll shut up because I feel like I'm talking way too much here.
Doing great.
But
you're my guest, Barry. That's your job.
Yeah. But I mean, it's I don't know that much. It looks like it because I'm on a computer. It looks cool. You see me in person, everybody's gonna be like, God, that guy sucks. Anyway, listen. But seriously, no, gosh, I forgot what I was saying.
We have too much fun.
Incubus and succubus, how they're attacking people and creating sleep paralysis and things like that in the sleep cycle as well. So that's something just to be very, very aware of, And then these individuals that promote these dark agendas and all that stuff and telling people to stay away from the light and all these things. So just be aware of all that, and how there's different predators and how these predators latch onto us, whether it's the demonic or even the earthbound spirits, which is a different level. They get onto these places on our bodies that are storing our organs, that are storing past trauma. And that includes past life trauma. We don't even believe in past lives in this society, but yet I've worked with a lot of clients that I have to remove trauma that's coming from other past lives. It's very prevalent, and it's passed on from our parents, generational curses. Most of those have, and you look up the hierarchy, like Maslow's hierarchy and all that stuff, they show how certain traumas store in certain organs. That is vital.
Wow.
How the cellular structure stores the trauma, So those are places for dark entities and earthbounds to attach and begin the possession of us through that cycle. Anyway, sorry, we're talking about vampires, and we're just covering all of it though. The human element, the human element, and the non-inorganic element too. And that takes us into, and I'll shut up right after this, and I'll be done. But what I learned when I was younger about what the old cycle of warriors did, which were fearsome individuals, tricksters, horrible people, to some degree, and some of it was just the practice. It was shrouded in darkness, and what they had a habit of doing was a way of trapping inorganic beings, bringing them through these portals. And these portals happen if you see like water and a shining thing on the surface of water. Those two create these portals that you and I have talked about.
Wow.
And through that comes these things called like in that way you can start accessing these inorganic beings that are come from the levels of fluidity, and that's a kind of a darker thing. Okay, and there's a way to bring them through these portals, and then they can't get back, and a lot of we can't send them back. So then they found ways to actually trap these inorganic beings in different containers, in crystals, in corn, kernels of corn. Different way to trap these inorganic beings by feeding them these negative emotions that they feed on, and releasing just a little bit through controlled folly, releasing just enough to feed them and trap them back in there, even an orgone box. You know what I mean? And then feed and releasing them on people, to attack people or cause people problems of perception. That's a very old technique.
Now who do you say is releasing them? Are these like witch doctors and people who practice the dark arts?
Yeah, sorcerers, witches, people who all practice that type of dark thing, but it's an art of trapping inorganic beings from different realms once you get them here. And a lot of them can't get back, especially the techniques I'm talking about. Like one I tried when I was a kid, I wasn't really a kid, I was a teenager, but it was a type of scrying done in a river with a mirror. And I had an inorganic being come through that thing. And then it followed me around here, but it seemed to be a giant moth. an atlas moth. You know what I mean? And
Wow.
moths oddly are the guardian of knowledge. So they say that the golden dust on their wings and the patterns is pure knowledge. But anyway, that's neither here nor
Wow.
there, right?
Huh.
Sorry.
Okay,
I just
so
want to
how
get that out so we're done with that part, and I'll shut up now.
now I have a question for you, Barry. Okay, so how do these inorganic beings interact with earthbound spirits that are human spirits that have passed over? That are spirits, souls that were once human. How do they interact on the other side? Do you know?
You know, it's pretty interesting because I think that there's sometimes maybe a slight barrier of some type because the
Mhm.
earthbound spirits I found as a whole cross over somewhat easy. You know what I mean? More than what you would think if you don't treat them like demons. You know what I mean? You treat them like his mom and dad or uncles that didn't cross over and people that are lost souls. And
Okay.
used it. You know, you mentioned that I used cognitive behavioral with youth. I did that for
Yes.
decades. But you know, I also use cognitive behavioral with earthbounds, and it works even better. Who would have guessed
Really?
that? Oh God, yes. As opposed to pretending like I'm Max von Sydow from The Exorcist or Malachi Martin. It's not. You know, it's not. It's a different deal because some of them join with people because they're not able to be heard. You know, I've had, you know, like when I use the love of God to help these earthbounds to cross over. But a lot of, you
Okay.
know, I've had one that told me, don't talk to me about God. I said, why not? Well, there is no God because if there was, he or it wouldn't have let me get murdered the way I got murdered, that type of pain I went through. Or another one that told me, don't talk to me about God. There is no God. I said, how do you know that? Well, because if there was a God, he wouldn't allow us to all be bumping into each other down here and you all ignoring us forever. You think
Oh,
about that. Well, the
that's
earthbound
that's
spirit
that's
says
what
that.
hell would be to me.
Yeah, different
I
types
think
of it, you know, Jessica.
I think that would be considered hell in my book.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's
Hmm.
terrifying.
Hmm.
That just made me lose my train of thought, Barry. That's crazy. Oh
And
my
that's if
gosh.
anybody wants to have a session with me on this, they think they have attachments. I do it remotely, you know, and I'm shocked at how effective it is. It's just like being in person. So contact me. My email is barrylittleton13@gmail.com. And I'll get back with
Okay.
you real quick and we'll set something up. Because I know people are wanting, and I know that the fact is, no matter how many of these I do, no one wants to say, hey, I had a session with Barry. And hey, I had I heard 7 dead people attached to me. No one wants anyone to know. And that's cool. I understand. There's so many of them, we all pick them up. Unless you're somebody really, really trained on how to protect yourself, then it's hard. And even if you
Yeah.
are, you've got these dark ones that come through. Like I've said before, I won't repeat it too much, but you know, they attack us from these different ways. They create problems in your house, mess with your plumbing, mess with the plumbing and the liquid in your car, destroy those two things, a lot of financial stress. Then they jump over into your spouse and cause problems with them. They're arguing with you. Then you go to work. You got this petty tyrant at work that's desperate to be a middle manager. They're
Or
stabbing
one that
people in
you're
the back.
married
You got
to.
to deal with them.
Just kidding.
Yeah, and they stress your shields. All that stuff is
That's
firing on
right.
you. And you know how to
Yes.
protect yourself. The people, I'm
Yes.
talking to people in this beautiful group, your wonderful audience, because a lot of them are powerful and they know how to protect themselves. So in that case, it means the dark forces have to use a different strategy, which is to
That's right.
strain your shields in the way I just said. And it's just enough to create these little cracks, just these little
Yes.
cracks. And then they slip in and go right for that heart chakra.
They
They
do.
can really get into your loved ones in and really start
I can
attacking you.
attest. And let me tell you, it's not when your vibrational frequency, because my vibrational frequency has not always been high. It was very low for a while, and I was able to be manipulated and lied to and abused in a lot of ways. And so it was when you hit rock bottom and you have to claw your way out of hell, so to speak. That's when you start healing, and when things can't touch you as your vibrational frequency begins to rise, people around you who aren't on a high vibration will start to attack you. Things will get to them and they start coming to you. And so that's why it's important to go into hermit mode. This is a whole different topic. We'll do another show on this. Let's talk about vampires. Let's get back to our vampires a little bit, because when you were mentioning the blood, okay, and manifesting with blood, uh, it reminded me of something, Barry. I remote viewed the Mineral Point vampire. Okay. This is out of Wisconsin. And so, talking about vampires and vampires in America, I know Matthew Delph is very interested. He talks about a vampire out west that people talk about. The locals will not drive down this road at night because they swear there's a vampire that lives on this road and will kill you or drink your blood. There was, back in the 1980s, there were multiple reports of a vampire in Wisconsin. Okay. And this vampire was not just any vampire. I don't believe that anyone reported actually getting bitten by this guy. He just looked like a vampire. Okay. And he was jumping, 10 to 12 feet up in the air when the police would chase him. Okay. And so, Barry, you actually did a video a while back on Spring Hill Jack. And I believe it was Spring Hill Jack and jumping entities or something like that. And I was actually, when I remote viewed this vampire of Mineral Point, Wisconsin, I picked up that it was conjured up with blood and satanic rituals and some kind of very dark magic. Okay. Whatever this entity was. So these vampires are not only eating blood and things like that, so to speak, they're being manifested by that. So apparently blood is a very powerful manifester of some sort. Yeah, this is a real thing.
Mm-hmm. And, those entities that do jump in our field of awareness and jump out. And some of them, that would include the chupacabra too, that also has these vampiric type of qualities, as in suck. It was a blood sucker, was it not? The original chupacabra, not the one that looked like a dog, but the gray looking one that's supposed to be a marsupial of some type.
Yeah.
And so it makes you wonder with this vampiric thing, how far does it go? Because typically I want to always think that they look like Bela Lugosi. That was my favorite vampire, but this goes into something so much different with just the cult status alone of the people that are into this and how dark that is and what all they're doing and using these things like that Aleister Crowley stuff to manifest things through blood. It's it's very, very morbid. Sorry.
I know, especially in the state of affairs, especially around the world right now. And you hear about sacrificing children and stuff like that. It's very dark, and it's stuff that I don't really like talking about very much because you just don't want that in the collective consciousness. Okay. But however, it does happen. And they say, during the moon phases, make sure your kids are inside, lock the doors, don't let your pets out on certain nights.
Mm-hmm. And, the way this bottling of vampires, and what I already mentioned about the inorganic beings and the way that they were trapped by the last cycle of warriors, that takes us into the genies in the lamp too, and that whole type of a thing, which is what, the same basic principle as these bottled vampires and as these trapped inorganic beings, as we talked about, so when thinking about beings like the jinn and these vampires and these bottles, I mean, it's all maybe not the separate things that we think it is,
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Well, I think it's cool because they're shapeshifters. Okay. Vampires can be shapeshifters. Now, anytime I've talked about werewolves or vampires. This name comes up, and I was just talking with Matthew Delph about this a couple of nights ago. Maybe it was last night. I don't know. I sent him a video of Bill Shonobelum or Shonobellum, or I don't know how to pronounce that man's last name. I'd like to get him on my show. If anybody knows him, y'all have him contact me, please. But this is a guy. Yes, this is a guy. He is a former member of the Brotherhood of Satan, Barry. And he was I think he's a rabbi now or something like that. But he talks about how when he was in the Brotherhood, he absolutely turned into a vampire. And that there are people there who the other people in the cult or whatever the organization, they could turn into werewolves too, using black magic and stuff like that. So it's fascinating. You guys, he's got a YouTube channel, so y'all go check him out. Bill, I'm going to say Shonobelum. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it.
Well, shape-shifting is a matter of perception too. It's a feat of awareness. And I've talked on here, I believe, before, and I've done some videos over shape-shifting and the way it was taught to me, and it's different in terms of you have to use your intention and your dream attention to actually mold the dream body itself, since it doesn't
Okay.
stick to the physical parameters of this body. And a lot of the shape shifting you see people doing is done in the dream body. It's with the dream body. But the dream body, with the proper exercise, can be made nearly as corporeal as this one. And then you shift, these people can shift their cognitive abilities 100% into the dream body. And then they're doing these things, you know? Food for thought. So some of the shape shifting that's done is done in that way as much as it is someone wearing the garment of a dead animal and doing that and doing the whole werewolf in London thing.
There's that's a skinwalker, right? Mm-hmm. So skinwalker. Yeah. Do skinwalkers eat people? That's my question.
You know, I haven't heard that as much as it is making people sick.
Okay.
You know, like that Navajo Ranger, he talked about that when you start investigating some of the skinwalker reports, especially at the reservations. They start talking about how these things make people sick. It's like they have some type of ectoplasm on them or some way that they're, you know, making people ill that they come into contact with. And that to me is interesting, you know, similar to the black-eyed children make people sick too, when people come in contact with them. Anyway, yeah, so
Brown Dwarf knows Bill. He knows who that guy is. He's part of the Prophecy Club. I'm not sure what that is, but it's worth looking at. It's worth looking that man up, y'all. He is so interesting.
What's his last name again?
You're going to make me say it one more time. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's Shonobellum or Shonobellum. I'm not sure.
It's like
I think you just like hear me say his name because I don't know how to say it.
Mr. Garvey, the guy said, hey, Rod. You know, when I was a kid, I thought that's how that name was spelled. It looked like Rod to me. Anyway.
I have no idea. It doesn't matter. It's spelled SCHNONEBELLIUM. I don't know. Anyways, we have a question in the chat tonight, Barry. Joe Monk. Hey, Joe. He wants to know, are black-eyed kids vampires? They always ask to be invited in. That's a good point.
What's happening, Joe? That's a great question. You know, what I think, though, it's interesting that they do ask to be invited in. But I mentioned before, I think the black-eyed children are actually a warning system from an altered timeline, which is one of nuclear war. And they're similar to what we used to have, which was when I was younger, the Garbage Pail Kids that were supposed to be an answer for the Cabbage Patch Dolls. But the Garbage Pail Kids were supposed to be the survivals of a nuclear war fallout. And I believe that's what the black-eyed children are. And when, you know, it's interesting because whatever they've seen and whatever's happened has turned their eyes black. But when you start really, really reading the reports, one is, I said that would be kind of a phenomenon that was cyclic, and it didn't last long, and those reports started going away. But the people who actually touched a black-eyed children or in their proximity too long all reported getting really, really sick. And a certain type of sickness. Check out the reports of the people that say they've encountered these things. Like the lady that said she got into her car and she left her kid in the car, and she went to the store. She comes out, and that black-eyed children was sitting in the car with her kid, talking to her kid, you know, and she tripped out and she touched it or something. And a couple of people that say they touched it, they all say that. Well, it's interesting, the sickness that they all describe having afterwards. It sounds a lot like radiation poisoning, a lot. And the vibration they seem to generate off people is one of fear. And I think it's an attempt for us not to go to that timeline. That's what I think they are. I could be wrong, though, Joe Monk. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're specifically vampires. I think they're more connected to like almost the Men in Black in a way, how the garments they wear are even similar. The black-eyed children always have on black hoodies.
They have hoodies. Yeah, I was going to say. I've actually encountered one person in my lifetime who was not a child. It was a grown man, but he had completely black eyes. And yes, he could have been cracked out. I don't know. It was when I lived in Atlanta, but this man came down and was ringing my doorbell to my apartment one night, very late at night. And I lived in like the bar district of downtown Atlanta off Ponce de Leon Avenue, not a very savory place. Okay. But I lived in a nice house down in a basement apartment, and in the middle of the night, I got it wasn't uncommon for my friends to drink and then, want to crash on my couch or something. And so I thought, it has to be somebody I know. So I walked down the hallway and there was a man standing outside the door. I didn't open my door, but I could see him, and he had completely black eyes. I mean, even the whites were black. Everything was black. And he just stood there like he was a zombie. So it was very odd. Very odd.
Did he ask to come in?
He didn't say anything. I crept back inside my apartment, shut the door, and locked it. So no. But it was very odd. I called him the soulless being. He seemed to not have a soul. Yeah. And that was that haunted place that I lived in. It was a very haunted house where I would come home at night and there'd be like a blanket of flies on my ceiling. I had a black mass, like a cloud that flew through my apartment, and it shoved my body down into my cabinets and then went into my closet. Yeah, it was very, very dark there.
Those spirits that can, excuse me, those spirits that can manifest insects are amongst your stronger ones. I myself got attacked, it was about 2012 I had a friend, and this house that she had was very, very active. It was a huge house that was converted into be like apartments.
That was what I lived in, a house made into apartments.
And this place was so active, but what started happening is because I made a couple of them get away from me. I don't play that. But then the strongest one in there started sending at night bird mites in through one window. They come in through one window, was jacking me on the back of my head and on my neck, my knuckles. And I mean, even to the point where I had put on some off before I went in these people's house, and I still got jacked. Yeah, bird mice, but this was a spirit trying to get me out of there. And that's one that is, strong enough to actually pinpoint an attack from insects like that. They're harder to get rid of because normally, like that house, they're coming out of the land. They're coming out of the cursed land. Where I live, there's a ton of Native American bloodshed all over this territory here.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff comes out of the ground. It is what it is, out of the land.
Well, that house that I lived in that was haunted, it actually was on land that was where the Civil War was fought in downtown Atlanta, where the city was burned down at some point as well. And so a lot of bloodshed right there on that property. Not to mention I had a whole bunch of like homeless people living underneath my porch and all that kind of stuff. So it was just, it was interesting. It was very interesting. Very colorful place, as you say. I love living there though, but it was just scary. Sometimes just there's a lot of stuff that happened there. We'll do a show about it one day.
The amount of earthbound spirits that get trapped both energetically and in a cycle too, a vicious cycle too, a phantom type of cycle, and almost the poltergeist that comes with the battlefield. Very, very, very traumatizing and dangerous. I've heard a lot about places I would rather not go. Certain battlefields and certain ancient sites I won't visit. I pick up psychometry on places like that. Don't need it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, well, we're trying to protect our energy anyway. So, I'm not a huge fan of the ghost hunting stuff either. I've kind of had my day in that, and I started off being very interested in ghosts because I had so many people in my family and my friends that died. So of course, that's kind of how a lot of us paranormal researchers start out. We want to do ghost hunting and talk to dead people, but now being the seasoned researcher I am, I see how dangerous that can be. It's like conjuring spirits, and things like that. So we have to be very, very, very observant.
And you have people like myself, you, and I'm sure I'm feeling several people in the audience that got attacked by an earthbound spirit, a ghost, when they were a child. If you're lit up like a beacon, they attack you, especially if they can't join with you. You get attacked like I did. You know what I mean? And oh wow. And it's worth remembering that when you have people like molesters and things like that and murderers, and then they cross over, they die, they don't cross over, and the hate they contain, they become something worse. You know what I mean? And we gotta all be very, very aware of that, you know, and try to keep ourselves protected from that a lot. But I know a lot of people that just get attacked by these earthbound spirits, these ghosts. It can be
Yeah.
quite
I
traumatizing.
actually, at that haunted house that I lived in, where that black-eyed man showed up in my outside my door, I used to have dreams of an old man. I would go to sleep at night and I would dream of an old man who would talk to me, who told me he lived there. So I was connecting on a 5D level with the entity that lived there, and it was an earthbound spirit, actually. And but he wreaked havoc. I don't even think it was him that was wreaking havoc on me. I think there was another entity there. But I did communicate with that man in my dreams quite often. Yeah.
Something I'll say, because you asked earlier how what is the relationship between earthbounds and the demonic. I can't always say that, but I have experienced this before. Earthbound spirits telling me when they first start communicating with me, I was told you were coming. I heard you were coming. And I'll always ask, you heard from who? From who? And they never give me a straight answer. Sometimes it's been, the other earthbound spirits that were inhabiting this person's body, the strongest one that I had to cross over first. They
I would
told
say
me
those are vampires, spirits inhabiting people's bodies. I mean, I've had attachments before, so I know they can suck the life out of you.
Yeah, and these are even different because they're so entwined in the organ and within the entire energy field that they're not perceptive as attachments. They're like within. You know what I mean? So, but that's a lot of, and it's so common. You know what I mean? Unless you're somebody who's really been trained to protect yourself, and even then, we still pick them up.
Yeah.
It just happens.
I mean, well, see, back then I was vibrating on a lower vibrational frequency. Okay. Y'all heard I lived in a bar district. Okay. So I was going out all the time. I lived by MJQ in Atlanta. If y'all know, if anybody from Atlanta knows that, we used to go all the time.
What is that? What is that? I'm not hip.
It's an underground club. We used to have so much fun, man. And,
is that Atlanta, you said?
Atlanta, yeah. I live next door to the Claremont Lounge. Okay.
Underground mall once.
No, that's underground. That's no fun. Nobody wants to go there. No, I lived across the street from the Claremont Lounge. Y'all look it up. I'm not going to talk about it on air. But anyways, I had a lot of fun there. But yeah, it was very dark, and a lot of seedy characters, hanging out around the area. And I just don't, I don't vibrate on that frequency anymore at all. It's been about 20 years. Okay. Since I lived out there. It has been 20 years, actually. Jesus, I'm getting old. But yeah, it's all about what the vibrational frequency that you vibrate on. Okay. And that will determine if things are going to attach to you sometimes. Am I correct, Barry, or am I totally wrong on that?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. Okay. And even then, it's real easy, like we have to do things that kind of sours the milk, so to speak. And it's normally things that are, like loving humor and things like that these entities do not like, and they get the hell away from you. So these vampires, physical or non-physical, fit in the categories that we're talking about. It's not separate. So anybody thinks that, they're talking about the non-human ones, that it doesn't matter. They're all predators, and what we're seeing manifesting in human form through people that are just obsessively doing that and tripped out on it, as opposed to actually physically being a vampire. Instead of drinking blood and gonna make themselves sick. Ultimately, human body's not made to digest that. So
human blood.
Yeah. And and these satanic people that are preying on people and using blood in the vampiric way to manifest negative inorganic beings and demons. And that's what we touched on a lot here, and it's horrible, but it's the fact of this place. And what's scary is down here on this planet, on this vibration, the negative is so much more accessible than the good. I mean, evil doesn't have a set place, so it just roams around down here like a member of the population.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm really Mr. Sunshine.
Well,
I don't want to
we
seem
are
like
constantly
a negative
bombarded. No, we're all love and light, Barry. And I know listen, y'all, my computer is probably freezing up. Every time my computer freezes, y'all take a shot, okay? Or y'all take a drink. But yeah, it's we are bombarded by negativity all the time, and it's just the state of the world right now. And there are forces that feed off of all that negativity. So there's a vested interest in making us feel bad and our health being bad and not getting the nutrition we need and worrying about money and bills and our kids and all that stuff. So yeah, there's different types of vampires out there. Now it is fun to talk about the vampires that suck blood. I think that's kind of fun and cool, but it's also very scary. But from me remote view, I've actually remote viewed an actual vampire, and it was real. Okay. It was a very dark entity that had been conjured up with blood and satanic rituals. So I don't know, Mary. The bottles, though, This is what really threw me for a loop, though, because we got genies in a bottle. What about the genies in a bottle? The gin.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I was saying earlier. They're very much connected. And that goes back to what I was saying about these ancient warriors that would trap inorganic beings in these different containers. And one of them would be corns of kernels, crystals, bottles, or like what is that? What do they call those things? Right there. It's not a bottle, but what do you call it? The thing
a tea kettle?
Barbara Eden came out of.
It looks like a tea kettle. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe somebody in the audience knows. Let's see.
I see some. I'm making the mistake of looking over here at comments. I saw someone just make a comment that was completely erroneous.
Cryptoville, thank you so much. Listen, Cryptoville actually showed me how to pronounce Bill. I forgot how to pronounce his last name already. Thank you, Cryptoville. You've come to my rescue twice tonight. It's an oil lamp, some sort of a lamp. You gotta rub it the right way if you want Christina Aguilera to come out of that thing. Okay, just rub her the right way.
God, yeah. I think I'll stick with Barbara Eden, Elizabeth Montgomery.
Oh my gosh!
But when looking at that, it's the same thing though. That's an inorganic being, a jinn, whatever, and a jinn would be similar to what I just described. Now you ran a book called A Secondary Midware. Same thing. Okay. You know what I mean? Or at least similar anyway. And these techniques that are used to trap inorganic beings. That's one of them right there. So whether it's a jinn, a vampire, it's still, and these vampires, when saying that, you get them when they're mist and when they're in the vapor form, you have a lot of inorganic beings. That is nearly their receptacle for consciousness, is some type of a vapor mist. So it takes us into that same area, It's maybe more nebulous than the cookie cutter things we want it to be.
Yeah. I don't know. So what about, like, I have a witch ball, like, you can buy witch balls and stuff. And that's something that could be kind of seen as similar. I have one hanging on my window right here. It's good to put those on your windows to keep the witches from getting in your house. Right. So it is a similar kind of thing. These lamps, I guess, because it traps, it's supposed to trap the witch before it gets into your house, I think. And what about those blue jugs, like the blue bottles that people put on their trees outside their house, especially down here in the South? I think it's a Southern thing, where people put blue bottles, blue glass bottles. I see them all the time. I see them all the time. There's a house right down the road that has blue bottles on all the limbs, like on one of their bushes. They say that. I think that's to trap spirits as well. Keep them away from your house. So it's a thing. It's a thing. Witch balls. Yeah. Witch balls. Entries.
I would dare say something. I would dare say something. Unless it's the non-corporeal inorganic, I don't think there are any real physical humanoid vampires. I think that's a movie thing. I think the real ones are the inorganic ones we've been discussing. I'm sorry, I just don't see a real physical one. Do you? Do you believe that?
Not capture witches.
I would even go for the
Gotcha.
werewolf and the shapeshifter even more than I would these vampire
Yes.
things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I
they're
don't know.
entities. They're entities. Okay. So I think that listen, movies such as what is that, Twilight, they really
Oh,
and what is the other one? Underworld.
oh,
I love Underworld.
that's
They
a good
really
movie.
romanticize vampires, right?
Oh
They're
God,
so
you had to bring
romantic.
that.
I'm actually team
Yeah.
werewolf. I like those guys better.
Look,
Those are
you know,
sexy.
I'm gonna tell you. Let me just get this off my chest, okay? Because when I worked with these children, I was an administrator, and I had all of these kids on this higher level that wanted me. The deal was the reward was I would take them to a movie, and you know these gang members, they wanted me to take them to see Twilight. So I go to see this movie
Okay.
with these kids, and you know I'm gonna tell you, look, I like vampire movies a lot, and forever in all the vampire movies, what happens when light hits a vampire? They either ash or they explode, they burn. It's something like that. They're destroyed, but not Twilight. On Twilight, when sunlight hits them, they twinkle. That was terrible. Oh, you're so beautiful. You're so beautiful. That sucked terribly. Okay, I stood up and I was like, man, this movie sucks. And the kid's like, oh, Barry, be quiet. I had to sit down, man. I
But they're
couldn't
kids.
take it.
That's the thing. It's a generational thing, Barry. They're kids.
I mean, they twinkle. Anyway, sorry, I'll shut up because I
But
know
they
somebody's
don't
getting really
know
mad.
they also don't know the research you've done on paranormal things like vampires and werewolves and dogmen and Bigfoot. You know the real deal behind all that stuff, and so as opposed to the Hollywood versions,
I'll stick to Hollywood on Hollywood, and I think that
right?
movie should have ended with Wesley Snipes showing up as Blade. That's what I think should have happened at the end of that movie. Anyway, yeah.
Hey, that's a good sequel. You should go promote that. Try to get somebody to make that sequel. I would watch it.
Anyway, I better quit joking around. People get mad at me. Anyway,
Nobody's gonna get mad at you.
but I mean, not to say, but I think there are people trying to be real vampires like that. But I think the ones that we see on TV are romanticized, opposed to the ones that are these
Very.
non-inorganic ones that maybe can become partially corporeal and things. So I think we're dealing with something much more nefarious than humanoid form, even. And that's why I took such an interest in this mist and the vapor that they're talking about, the bottle one. Because, like I said, a lot of these inorganic beings exist as mist and as vapor. I can't tell you how many people, like feeling some people in the audience right now have already experienced that,
Yeah.
So real
Yeah.
interesting.
Hey, Area 51, what's up? I'm team human too. I like the werewolves. They're sexy in those movies, but I'm still team human. I agree with that.
Sexy werewolves. Man, how can you say, you know, they,
Was that Jacob? I think his name was Jacob. He was cute. Come on. It's a movie.
Oh, that
It's a
movie.
movie.
Oh, I'm still traumatized from Dr. Pepper. He's a pepper, she's a pepper, doctor. And he wolfed out an American werewolf in London. I'm still traumatized by that. You know what I mean?
Right.
I would never go walking on the English moors for all the money in the world, man.
I mean, if we can't laugh about this stuff, we're gonna cry. So, but it's also interesting that these entities are so romanticized and really made to be so cool in our media when it's really so dark. Knowing what you and I know, it's very dark. So, but it's all good. It's all good. Just be careful what you're ingesting when it comes to these really scary movies. And I mean, I think a vampire movie is better than a slasher film and stuff. I don't know. Werewolves.
What's wrong? You don't want to see some maniac in a ski mask running around
No,
chopping up young virgins for no reason at all?
I
mean,
don't watch that.
those
That's
movies
not my
are.
reality.
Yeah,
No.
or in fact, they're just murdering every person they come into contact with. Period. I
Well,
think I
see,
just
we
saw
watch, but
Jason
when,
Takes Manhattan. My
when you
God.
watch that stuff, it actually starts like manifesting. That's why I quit watching the first 48, that show about people, real life murders, because um, they started filming that show on my street where I lived in Decatur, Georgia. And I decided that I was going to quit watching that because I didn't want to manifest that on my doorstep, you know? So,
Now,
because I manifest, everybody. If y'all hadn't noticed, I'm a good manifester. I talk about it pretty often. So I have to be careful about where I let my mind go with stuff.
now,
So
now,
that includes television shows.
on the serious note, I had a good family friend, Jerry Daly. He passed away last year. But when I was a kid, he was a writer for the Super Friends cartoon, and then he
Yeah.
started doing movies. And he even did a movie. One of them was called like, uh, uh, oh gosh, Black Magic Woman with Apollonia Quintero and Luke Skywalker, Mark Hamill. He did that one,
Okay.
and then not Death Wish, but it's 1 through 4. Wishcraft 1 through 4. He did those, and he had told me at my aunt's funeral. This has been 20 years ago. He told me he said Barry, I quit writing that stuff and doing that, and I said, well, he goes, I do plays and comedies now. I said, why is that? He said I started like manifesting things and seeing things when I was writing all
Yeah.
that dark stuff. It's like coming into my house. He said people should not be focusing on that. And since I
That's
do
right.
comedies now, I have none of those problems anymore. So that's very interesting, for somebody in the industry.
It is. And it is. It's very interesting. So everybody, y'all get your minds right. Let's try to manifest the good, not the bad, into our lives. And so if you want to have your mind blown, go to Barry's YouTube channel, everybody. Please join his Patreon. Barry, where can people find you?
YouTube is a good one. I'm trying to beat this shadow banning thing that I'm constantly on there. So YouTube is a good place to go. I'm also on Patreon, all under Barry Littleton. I'm on YouTube, on Instagram, and also Facebook. My website is barrylittleton.com. I don't get on there very much. I need to have it restructured and stuff, but the links are on there. But YouTube is a good one. Facebook is a good one.
Awesome. And everybody, Barry and I will be speaking both. We're going to give presentations at the Journey to Truth conference in Grafton, Illinois, May 22nd to 25th of this year. Y'all please get your tickets and go. I think the hotel rooms are booked, but they had a huge response to this conference. Barry and I will both be giving presentations there. So everybody, please come see Barry and come see me, please. So Barry, thank you. This has been an amazing show. And I hope you'll join me again here at Spaced Out Radio and on the Cryptid Huntress at YouTube as well.
Thank you for having me. And thank you to your audience. And hopefully I didn't veer you off topic too much this time.
You never do. You never do. And I'm going to have you back soon. Okay, Barry? So thank you so much. Okay. We'll see you soon. Thank you, Barry. All right, y'all. Don't forget that right after this show, After Hours has an amazing show set up for you guys. They're probably about to go live in just a few seconds here for the next 3 hours. I will see you guys next week. But for now, I'm the Cryptid Huntress. I'm Jessica Jones. I'm headed off the trails. I will see you guys next week. I don't have my guest book yet, but I can promise you they're going to be good ones. All right. Y'all have a great week. Bye.